Hey everybody. I'm joining Carissa here, welcoming our esteemed guests and advisors to Sandbox and Teresa and Silvia. Teresa, Silvia, nice to be on with you together here today. As you both know, and as some of the folks who might be tuning in today might want to learn, AQNav is a product offering that is servicing an aerospace need around GPS loss and denial. So this is a technology that uses AI at the core to do a lot of the signal processing so that it can clean incoming data signals from a quantum sensor and fuse that together to provide an alternative position to aircraft, ships, and other things so that in situations in which GPS would be denied to them, they can continue to operate. And this actually also applies to the civilian sector as well, where we anticipate that we will make quite an impact in making the skies safer over time. So this is an emerging technology. It's relevant in the defense space. It's relevant in the aerospace domain. And I'm really excited to have the expertise of Teresa and Silvia here today to help shine a light on what careers in this space can look like and what it's like to lead in this space as well. So Teresa, you've held significant leadership roles at the NSA and in the private sector. Could you tell us a bit about how your early career experiences shaped your approach to leadership in intelligence and cybersecurity?
Learning to speak up, you'll be surprised that they will learn, others will learn from you. One of the things we learned together was really this ability to be persistent and not give up. Finding those teammates that were diverse in their thinking and their experiences, that really showed me that embracing these unique ideas could lead to solutions. I mean, today we call it innovation. Back then we called it solutions. So, times change. But I think the constant learning and embracing change is absolutely essential. And the final thing I wanted to mention on this was this question about failure. And I think failure can be one of our greatest teachers. It just builds this resilience and this adaptability and the growth in a leader and in a person. So I'd leave you with those would be sort of my top three: to be persistent and bold and speak up and embrace those change and look at that as an opportunity, and don't fear the failure, learn from it, adapt to it, and keep moving forward.
Thank you for that response. It's fantastic to hear.
So Sylvia, similar question here around leadership. You've successfully managed large teams of professionals. Tell us a bit about your core philosophy on leadership and how you adjust to fit some of these different cultural contexts.
I think my core philosophy for leadership is really authenticity and value-based leadership. What I mean with this is that as a leader, we create a roadmap for all these values and guiding principles and beliefs, and together we help shape the team behavior. And then it's the team behavior together that helps inspire one another and face difficult and navigate challenges. I am a firm believer that leadership is much more than what you say, and is really what you do. And this has been very beneficial in my career, because sometimes in my life I found myself in countries where I barely could speak the language, or my equivalent fluency was just past a 5-year-old. So my actions, my belief, and the way I really behaved is what drove the team. They connected with me. They understood I was consistent in my message, even though my words in the local language were not as powerful as I wished for. The other thing that has helped me in this new context is also to continuously consider my leadership as a journey. Is exactly what Teresa was saying before. You learn through your mistakes, you improve, you get to know yourself better, and you develop new tools. So sometimes I consider my years in Japan, to make an example. So Sylvia's Japan years have a touch of Mr. Bean in Japan. And because of this, I develop myself better and better, I communicate better, and I'm also a better listener.
On this topic of multicultural, multinational types of settings, which many aerospace companies do operate in, and with these multicultural teams, everybody working towards one objective, but maybe coming from a variety of cultures. Can you share just a few key moments or decisions that significantly influenced your own career trajectory to kind of work in this space? It seems like something you thrive in and you have so much expertise. How did you end up working on such multicultural projects? And tell us more about why Silvia is, why, the how and the why.
I think I can tag in on a message that Teresa mentioned before, and I will try and give you two examples. One of the Silvia in a very, very early beginning of the career, and the other one that was supposed to be more mature. From the beginning, I was told, and this was my perception, especially I was in my first year or second year of my career. And so my goal was to learn a lot, learn from all the senior engineers that were surrounding me, and to ask very, very smart questions. But I asked them only when it was really necessary and relevant, and I could really further the conversation. So I lived these first few years of my career in a complete fear of saying something inappropriate or asking a question that could ruin the meeting or could disrupt the meeting. And because of this, since I'm a very social creature and I like learning from others, my pace of learning and my success rate in the team was not very fulfilling. So one day in this big meeting with all the leadership team and very senior engineer, I take all my courage and I ask these questions. The second after, I wanted to disappear and vanish because everybody turned their faces to me, and I felt this enormous sense of responsibility. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, I disturbed a very senior leaders meeting. But at the same time, it came to me that I was feeling a huge relief. Finally, I'd asked this thing that had really obsessed me, and I was able to see the reaction. And it was so positive because other very senior engineers took my question, reformulated it much better. They gave additional example, but practically they had the same doubt and the same reasoning for understanding that I had. So it was really beautiful because then the atmosphere of the meeting completely changed. From a top-down solution, and everybody was very defensive and tried to see how we can implement this, to a very collaborative environment in which everybody was trying to understand better and people were brainstorming. So at the end, here you go, we had a much better solution and we nearly reached a consensus in the team. So that was really beautiful. After that, I became much more courageous. I started asking questions, and this drove to my first leadership position in a very small team. The next example I can give is very really in line with what Teresa was saying. Please step out of your comfort zone and be courageous. And what about you? Just go for it. I was very happy with my job in North America when a headhunter connected with me and said, would you like to go to Japan? They're launching a brand new project, something they've never done it before. And a part of me got so excited, super enthusiastic, and I was ready for this adventure. Another part of me said, where are you going? Do you even speak Japanese? Have you ever been to Japan? So this whole conundrum started really bothering me. And then I decided to ask questions to people around me. And what happened, they were asking me very logical question, exactly the same one. Do you speak Japanese? Have you ever been there? Do you even know somebody there? Have you worked for this company? Have you done a similar project? And the answer to all of this was no. And the majority of people were telling me, yeah, maybe you should consider. What about you? Just think of something else. You happy here? You're surrounded by a lot of friends. Where are you going? But a part of me kicked in and said, you know what? Why not? Why not going for this adventure? And that felt so bold, so liberating. And I'm so happy I did it because, as I said, Mr. Bean in Japan learned a lot through all these challenges. And there was an enormous personal growth as a consequence of this. Also, I learned a lot technically, and I developed myself as a technical leader in the industry. So it was very rewarding, but it took courage on my side.
I love this adventurous spirit, Sylvia, and the courage to just dive in. It's really inspiring. Teresa, onto your career journey. So you served in government and then you transitioned to major private sector roles like at Raytheon and Incatel. What motivated that shift, and how did your public sector experience influence some of your corporate work?
There were a couple of things. I really wanted to experience the private sector and learn new things and have that completely different out of the box experience. But the other thing was I needed more personal time. For example, I was in the SIGINT director job, which is a 24-hour day, 7-day a week responsibility. I mean, you don't work those hours, but certainly responsibility. And a crisis is always happening somewhere in the world. At that time, my mother was dying from cancer, and she really needed me to, be there more for her, and I really wanted to be there. So those two things really helped motivate me to make this big switch, as afraid that I was of making it, and it really worked out well. I mean, kind of to Sylvia's point, turned out to be a very, very rewarding change. You asked also, Carissa, I think, about what are those government experiences that might have influenced how my leadership in the private sector, and a couple of things that come to mind immediately. Especially in the intelligence community, and maybe larger in the US government anyway, you can take on greater responsibilities much earlier in your career. Those opportunities are very much available to you. So learning things like crisis management and culture building and ethical leadership, quite frankly, those were particular areas that did serve me very well in the private sector. I was at Raytheon, for example, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and there was an awful lot of panic in the workforce across everybody. Nobody really knew what was going to happen next. There was a lot of concern about what the government was going to do. We had a lot of government work, and was that going to shut down, and how was that going to impact us, etc. And we did a lot of classified work. So we had to have the workforce come into the secure compartmented areas to work, and they were afraid. They thought it was unfair. And I think overcoming that fear with transparency and creating those safe environments, and even quite frankly with pay differentials, made a big difference. Being there as a leader, as someone they could talk to, calling them and checking on them, and just listening, I think really helped. And then the second thing on this ethical leadership, we in the government our operations were very much rooted in law and in policy. And I think in the private sector, that played out in a little bit different ways in the form of having successful business relationships built on trust, foundationally built on trust. When you have teammates or partners, you only want those teammates or partners that you can call and they're going to be there for you, and vice versa. Yeah. And, I think that that really served me well and enabled us to really have the best and the brightest on our teams. And then finally, this culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. I have found that to be very, very true. So building that environment, that culture that's safe, and Sylvia was talking a little bit about this, nurturing, inspiring, that really leads to a high performance workplace and workforce. And I think you've done that at Sandbox, and I'm proud to be part of it. Both
of you have joined us, and we're so fortunate to have you as senior advisors to the company. Maybe Teresa, starting with you, what drew you to the organization, and how do you see your role in terms of influencing its mission?
I met so many people like you with this energy and this passion and just this brilliance that I was just so super excited. And the opportunity you guys were shaping and developing to improve the nation's security, which, for me, that's always been a passion for me, this post-quantum cryptography, an area I'm really concerned about, and the development, of AQ Guard and the ability to be able to improve, secure our data, and not just for personal use, but also, across our military and our government. That to me is just going to be transformative. And then, of course, as you were talking about AQ Nav earlier, we're 100% reliant on GPS. Our critical infrastructures, every time I get on an airplane, I'm thinking, oh, I hope it doesn't go down today. We are just through our military operations, and we all know that GPS is vulnerable. It can be jammed, it can be spoofed, it's dependent on satellites. We're all talking about how vulnerable it is. So, this really leads us, Houston, we got a problem here. And a backup to GPS that's unjammable and unspoofable and can be 24/7, not weather dependent. All these great things that you're bringing to reality for AQ Nav, I think are going to be just game changers for us. And when I watched the Air Force pilots flying that plane using AQ Nav, for me, there couldn't have been anything more impressive than that. I mean, it works. It's just awesome.
We got to that day thanks to the support of folks like yourself. So, Silvia, you've joined recently as a senior advisor. How would you describe your answer to that question?
Everything started because one of your team member, his name is Fernando, and he's an important part of SandboxAQ. And I went to a lunch and learn, and he was describing the work he was doing. And in a matter of minutes, as I was listening to the conversation, I got more and more inspired to the point that literally I couldn't believe all the things he was telling me. And he was describing quantum physics. And quantum physics that I know, or I was thinking from university days, was so far away, removed from application. That's why I'm an engineer, because I really like new product development application. All of a sudden, he was talking about quantum technology, quantum sensing, with the addition of AI and large quantitative models. All of a sudden, you could tackle some of the biggest problems, not only of business, but of science, that have pretty much, been with humanity for decades, if not centuries. And he was telling me, yes, we can tackle this problem now. And all of a sudden it hit me. I said, this is extraordinary. You're solving problem for mankind. And this went from life sciences to developing new materials and finally to navigation. And when he got into navigation, I was totally blown away. So you're telling me that you are developing a new navigation system. Please understand, I've been in this career for 40 years pretty much. And that's GPS. That's all we know. However, GPS, exactly like Teresa was saying, has a lot of limitation. And now, since I live in Germany, very close to Ukraine, we live every day this limitation and the problem that it has. And he was telling me, yes, this system is encrypted by design. It is non-jammable, is unspoofable. Oh, by the way, is terrain agnostic, is all weather, is day and night, and it is real time. And I was so mesmerized, and I said, how can I help? I'm sorry, I'm not a quantum physicist, but can I help? I spent my career in aerospace. I could, in new product development, maybe can help with certification. And from that moment on, it was history. And when I joined the team, is exactly what Teresa was saying, this extraordinary culture that where people really make an impact. And this impact is the willingness to resolve these enormous challenges that are scientific challenges, and they go with this grit and this resilience that is so inspirational. I think you guys work, and I met now, thanks to you, Luca, people that are junior engineer that just started, as well as the senior leaders in the organization, and they all seem to really be moved by this concept that is, I think I can summarize with the word with Amelia Earhart when she said, the most difficult thing is to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Is that tenacity, the courage to go through and solve enormous problems? And then you gave me the cherry on top few months after I joined, when I was for breakfast with my coffee. Here it comes the news, and SandboxAQ has signed for a 25 million research grant with the Michael J. Fox Foundation to develop and help progress medicines for Parkinson's disease. That thing touched me so deeply because my grandfather suffered for decades of it and at the end passed away of consequences of this disease. And I thought, here you go, Sandbox now is handling this problem. It is so inspiring because imagine the legacy you leave behind. Is energizing, is inspiring, all of the above, all at once. So I consider myself very fortunate to be an advisor for you, and I'm really honored to be here today.
Well, I can say we feel the fortune as well on our side. And actually, Silvia, we unfortunately share that in our family histories. And likewise, for me as a sandboxer, seeing colleagues work on that, it's inspiring for me as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Really is.
Yeah, I love to hear just the personal passion and connection. And to your point, Luca, I think so many of us here have that personal connection to some part or many parts of our mission. So looking forward to the future, what trends or technologies do you believe will shape our industries in the next decade?
These technologies are really being driven by the private sector, more so than the government. And because of that, they're available worldwide at the same time, which means the bad guys can get access to them as quickly as the good guys can get access to them. And so our need for this enhanced security, cybersecurity, encryption, navigation protections, that just makes that even more important. The game changers here, as we see here, and are living it day to day at Sandbox is, I think this artificial intelligence and what it brings to the different sciences like quantum science. I'd say that, for example, what artificial intelligence is doing in the cybersecurity space is a double-edged sword. It's giving the attackers a tremendous advantage while it's helping the defenders as well. And so making our, advancing our zero trust architectures in cybersecurity, I think you're going to see more and more of that. This biological digital integration for things like authentication, DNA storage, just about anything you can think of in that area is hard to predict what's going to be next. And the advancements in nanotechnologies and advanced materials, and we talked a little bit already about, what's happening with 6G and edge computing and real-time security. But I think the thing we really need to ask ourselves, because we see this more and more, is this growing ability to do fake news and disinformation. And how do we protect ourselves against that? What's going to be that, that all-in solution to being able to make sure everything we hear is authentic and everything, has integrity and is, if we so desire, confidential.
Silvia, how do you see this in the aerospace industry as well? What are some of the big trends in aerospace that you think people earlier in their career might want to think about specializing in or aligning their careers to? What can people do about these trends is also an interesting point.
In general, for aerospace, really autonomous flight. I see, for me, the future going in that direction. And with autonomous flight is a very complex item, in particular related also to autonomous systems and the possibility with the help of AI and companies like Sandbox and quantum technology to really go through optimization, for example, of routes, optimization of reliability and maintainability of a vehicle to the point that you can do predictive maintenance. This would be extraordinary. or even the possibility to really improve the life cycle of the vehicle and really the entire value chain related to sustainability. I see also sustainability is a very important trend. In Europe, it's happening already now. We're all working on it. And Sandbox, I think, is going to play a very important role for so many different topics. Think about all the new advanced material that Sandbox with quantum technology and the simulation that they can do can start developing, create, and even certify. And these materials that Sandbox can be working on will consider the entire life cycle. So from the moment the material is created to the end when the vehicle is disposed of, and all the recycling that can be done. And imagine also material that can be created without strong or powerful chemical that could be very damaging for the environment. So I see really infinite possibility. This is why I'm so excited to somehow do my little contribution and help out.
It's honestly, it's kind of a candy store for people who like cool technology to be at Sandbox. I'll be honest. You're always excited to hear about updates from colleagues, and it breeds, I think it breeds like a very healthy competition of like, I would really like to have something fun to show my colleagues. You know, for the folks that are watching this at home or on their commute or listening to it wherever they are, and they're thinking about careers at Sandbox, you know, from your own perspective, why might you be interested in joining SandboxAQ and the AQ Nav team in particular? And, you know, what advice would you have for somebody in that position in terms of how they can best position themselves for a role like the jobs that we have at SandboxAQ or other roles in this industry?
Yeah, well, Luca, that's easy, of course, to work for you. You want to make sure you're working for someone that inspires you and empowers you. And leadership, like you, Luca, at Sandbox, I think demonstrate these skills. So, you know, that would be top of my list. And of course, the opportunity to change the world, you know, that's a pretty big deal too, with alternatives to GPS and the difference that can make to our security. We talked about that, but that to me really speaks to my passion and to anybody that wants to make a difference. You asked also about, you know, what advice maybe to young people? And I think maybe maybe everybody already knows this, but this commitment to continuous learning and developing that deep technical expertise. I mean, things are changing so fast. To stay up, you need to be constantly learning. And don't forget to develop those soft skills, the ability to communicate, communicate your ideas, talking to people. I think that's really important when you're on teams and being able to work together. Being persistent, that would be the other big one from me. Taking care of yourself. Don't give up when it gets hard, and to always take care of yourself because you constantly have to be at 100%.
I said enough how exciting it is for a career in aerospace to be able to somehow contribute to a new navigation system. We want to talk, okay, now we are the advisor of the company. How about all the external recognition Sandbox has already received? I mean, it's difficult for me just to list some of the prizes, so I'll go with the last one that come to mind. Times, one of the best invention of 2024. And then we have first company, next big thing in tech, just 2024. The Diana NATO program, in which I think, look at how many applications where you've been selected among from 2,600, 3,000 applications. I mean, this is quite extraordinary. As a young engineer, how would you not want to work on a project like this? I think, I would you can see the excitement, and obviously I'm not young anymore, but this connection for the possibility of making such a big impact in an industry, this happens very rarely in a career, so it's amazing. And then to add to what Teresa is saying, obviously this amazing culture that Sandbox has created should not be underestimated, how important it is for a young person that enters the industry to really treasure this. I was very impressed by talking with some of the engineers in the team. They can work anywhere in the world they like. Majority of people in the industry are very much back to work in the office Monday to Friday, Saturday and Sunday as business needs require. And the people here have the possibility of working from wherever they are. Not to talk, like you were saying, Luca, about the fact that all the research is shared and people can go out there to conferences, shows, air shows, and really present their results. Normally, these possibilities to go to conference depends on business needs, depends on budgets. There are very many limitations. And everybody I talked to got the possibility at Sandbox to go and talk, even with people like me, online or really in conference. So I thought it was amazing. Then with regards to what advice to give to young person that join Sandbox, or really the industry in general, network, network, network. Many people assume that this network is just an easy thing. No, it requires a lot of effort. It's like a living creature. You have to nurture, care for it. And basically means you have to help and contribute for other people, help solve other people's problem. And first of all, this is very rewarding in itself, but in the future allows you for job opportunity, allows you to find sponsors and mentors that are such important figures in our organization, in our industry, and also the possibility of learning. I could not agree more with Teresa. We start this environment, and even if you just graduated, by the way, congratulations, you just officially enter the learning phase. This learning phase is a continuous journey, and Teresa and I keep going. And so my recommendation is maintain this curiosity, this sense of adventure. And as you move through, you learn more. And this is really very important to continuously learn, challenge yourself. And I think you will be really great in the industry.
Fantastic, Silvia. I just wanted to jump off on your point about the network and this amazing network that Sandbox is really building. We have brilliant advisors like yourselves, like this just amazing group of folks who are available to our employees for advice and coaching and figuring out tough problems. And it's a world-class group of folks, and I cannot be more grateful for having those folks at our disposal.
Yeah, let me echo that as well, Krista. I mean, in my career, I've worked at some great names in the past, and none of them offered me access in the way that I've accessed through Sandbox, the people as accomplished and esteemed as you, and who are willing and, who want to learn about this cool new tech intrinsically, are aligned with our mission and are willing to help and roll up your sleeves very often and kind of work with us. Looking at where things are today, in terms of technology, in terms of the geopolitical kind of environment that we're in, and et cetera, how would you advise people to think about their careers? I think that there's a lot of questions in terms of conversations I have with young professionals around like how they should be training and how they should be thinking about their careers in general.
That's a great point to end on, because I think, sometimes we all are at different stages in our life, and it's hard to anticipate what stage you're going to be in next. You can't always predict things that happen maybe to you or happen in the world, and remain, being able to be flexible and agile. And as Silvia has said, taking advantage of those challenges as well as opportunities to grow and to learn new things. I think fear a lot of times stops us from taking risk, and it's the risk taking that really develops us and helps us become. I know I've personally benefited from that, both as a leader, but as a person.
I think that the world today, maybe more than in other time, really requires leadership, and require leadership to solve problems of the community, problems that impact so many people. So for all the leaders out there, come and help. We need your support, we need your leadership, we need your guidance, and all together we can solve some of the biggest challenges we have nowadays. So exactly like Teresa is saying, be courageous, be bold, come and help, and it would be amazing what we can achieve all together.
Thank you so much for giving us your time, Silvia and Teresa. I hope I look forward to working with you in the future. And I really do hope that those who are listening found some value and inspiration from these two really accomplished individuals who we're very fortunate to have as advisors to us.
Yeah, I just want to thank both Sylvia and Teresa for their time, and for anyone out there listening, appreciate you checking us out and spending this time with us on our first ever Uncharted Conversations.
Again, please let me thank everybody who's listening, and also thank Sandbox, Carissa, yourself, and Luca for organizing all this. It's been really amazing to be here, and we hope if anybody has questions, they can reach out to you, and I would be delighted to answer. I mentor and coach many people, many young people entering this industry, so really delighted to be here today.
Yeah, and I'll just jump on that and second everything Sylvia said. And thank you, Luca, Carissa. This whole experience has been really valuable. And so thank you for that. And I'm happy to help anybody.
Don't wait on that opportunity. If you're watching this, trust me, you want to jump on that. You want to contact these individuals, and you want to benefit from their insights.